The black magic of Thien Linh Cai and the mystery of a human skull shipped from Vietnam to the United States. In the mysterious spiritual world of Southeast Asia, there is a name that sends shivers down many spines whenever it is mentioned: Thien Linh Cai. In folklore, Thien Linh Cai is often described as a form of dark sorcery that utilizes the skull of a deceased person, especially those who died young or suffered an unjust death, to create a spiritual entity that obeys the practitioner. Even more terrifying are the rumors that once on this dark path, the practitioner becomes obsessed, loses control, and gradually trades away their own humanity. According to folklore, this is considered one of the most fearsome and forbidden types of black magic. It is believed that those who practice Thien Linh Cai can control souls to serve their greed, power, money, or dark desires. Although there has never been any scientific evidence confirming the supernatural power of Thien Linh Cai, the criminal cases associated with it are entirely real, and it is precisely this blend of superstition, spiritual dread, and real-world crime that has made Thien Linh Cai one of the most haunting horror subjects in Vietnam. In today's video, we will delve deep into a famous case tied directly to the black magic of Thien Linh Cai, a place where the boundary between spiritual belief and human cruelty becomes blurrier than ever. The case began at 10 a.m. on July 13, 2005, when a man arrived at the Saigon Central Post Office in Ho Chi Minh to ship a package to the United States. The customer's package was carefully wrapped in a cardboard box weighing over 9 kilograms. The items inside consisted of a white plaster Buddha statue, measuring approximately 50 centimeters high, 30 centimeters wide, and 40 centimeters long, along with a package of turmeric weighing 318 grams. The box would have been shipped as usual had the item not shown several suspicious signs. At 3 p.m. on July 13th, when post office customs officials inspected the second export shipment of the day, they discovered that the plaster layer at the bottom of the Buddha statue was wet. Upon a light touch, the thin plaster layer quickly dissolved, revealing a blue plastic layer tucked inside. The package was immediately sealed, and the post office requested the sender to urgently present himself to supplement the declaration. The owner of the shipment was named Doan Ngoc Phong, residing in Vinh Hung District, Long An Province, currently known as Vinh Hoang Commune, Tây Ninh Province. The recipient's address was Duong Trung Duong, residing at Westminster Avenue, Garden Grove, United States. At 8 a.m. on July 14, 2005, Doan Ngoc Phong arrived to handle the package as requested. 2 customs officials from the Ho Chi Minh City Post Office directly inspected the box. The shock came when Mr. Phong opened the package. Inside the statue was a human skull. The skull was wrapped in a piece of red cloth, then placed into a blue plastic bag and concealed inside the hollow body of the statue. The statue containing the human skull was then packed into a cardboard box lined with foam and multiple layers of plastic. Inside, there were large quantities of dried tea leaves, the type used to embalm corpses, and jasmine flowers used to cushion the skull, all of which were soaked with water. Witnessing this scene, everyone was utterly stunned. The incident caused even more of a stir when one customs officer began vomiting and had to be rushed to the emergency room. Days later, he still suffered from headaches and dizziness, leaving him unable to return to work. The other officer did not vomit but was deeply traumatized and haunted. All of Ho Chi Minh City was panicked by the news of a package bound for the U.S. containing a foul-smelling human skull. At that time, facing the intense heat of the incident, the leadership of the Ho Chi Minh City Post Office Customs had to speak out to clarify the information. Accordingly, while it was true that water had soaked the bottom of the plaster statue, there was absolutely no foul odor resembling a decomposing body. A customs official at the time speculated that it was highly likely the remaining water from washing the skull or moisture from the jasmine flowers and galangal rather than from the skull itself. Immediately after, this entire strange shipment was handed over to the District 1 Police of Ho Chi Minh City for further investigation. On the morning of July 18, 2005, The Institute of Forensic Science under the Ministry of Public Security received the box to conduct a forensic examination at the request of the District 1 Police Investigation Agency. Initial results showed that the skull was intact, glossy black, and bore no trauma from hard objects. The dimensions of the skull were 17.5 centimeters by 21.5 centimeters by 13.5 centimeters. The lower jaw of the skull was detached. The upper jaw still had 3 molars, 2 first molars and 1 second molar, and the lower jaw retained 2 first molars. However, this detail made it difficult to determine whether the owner had their teeth knocked out, as it was highly probable the teeth had fallen out into the soil during decomposition. Through initial professional measurements and calculations, the Institute of Forensic Science under the Ministry of Public Security assessed that the skull belonged to an East Asian woman, approximately 20 years old. Specific results would require time for more advanced forensic analysis. Working with the District 1 Investigation Agency, the sender Joan Ngoc Phang declared that he had an older brother named Duong Trung Duong living in the U.S. His brother's business had been stagnant for a long time. After consulting a fortune teller named An T. Nin, the fortune teller claimed that he had to obtain an intact human skull to worship at home in order to prosper. Following back-and-forth discussions, Phang's brother in the U.S. called back and requested Phang to send him a human skull. Phang met directly with the fortune teller An and was introduced to a man named Huang Tai Son, living in Ben Luc Town, Long An Province, currently Vinh Huong Commune, Thien Linh Province. Son specialized in embalming corpses and exhuming graves, earning him the nickname Son Bit Mui, Son the Masked Nose Blocker. Around June 2005, Phang met Son and stated his need for a human skull. Phang's requirement was that the skull had to be cast inside a plaster statue to be shipped abroad to avoid detection. The price agreed upon for this task was 1.7 million Vietnamese dong. Son agreed, and Phang paid him a deposit of 500,000 Vietnamese dong. On the afternoon of July the 12th, 2005, Son acquired the item and contacted Phang via mobile phone. Phang rode his Honda motorcycle to the rendezvous point, a cafe opposite gas station 1932 on National Highway 1, Ben Luc Town, Long An Province, to collect the package. Afterward, Phang stopped by a market to buy a bag of turmeric to put into the box. On the morning of July 13th, Phang drove it to the Saigon Central Post Office to ship it, where it was subsequently discovered. Because Phang did not know the exact address of Son Bit Mui, on the morning of July 16th, the District 1 police escorted Phang back to Ben Luc to locate Son's house. When summoned for questioning to clarify the origin of the skull, Huang Tai Son stated, "On July 11, 2005, he noticed a grave that had been dug open with a hole to exhume the remains. He weighted down, intending to pry the coffin planks through this hole to bring them home to sell. But while groping around, he discovered a skull inside the grave. Son placed it in a bucket of water, brought it home to wash, and worshipped it at his house. Later, Son went to Lai Thieu, Binh Duong Province, now part of Ho Chi Minh City, to order a hollow plaster statue of the Maitreya Buddha for 400,000 Vietnamese dong. Son placed the skull inside the hollow cavity, sealed the statue, packed it into a box, and delivered it to Phang. Refusing to believe the highly contradictory statements from both Phang and Son, as it was highly improbable for a grave to just randomly lie open like that, the District 1 police directly escorted Son to the cemetery of Hamlet 6, Thanh Duc Commune, Ben Luc Town, Long An Province to verify his testimony. This cemetery was located within the Saigon Trung Luong Expressway project zone and was undergoing relocation. So many graves had already been exhumed and moved. Only 2 graves remained at the cemetery. The grave that Son pointed out as the source of the skull was 6 meters in diameter, with an earthen mound 2 meters high, covered in thick grass. The head of the grave did indeed have a hole measuring 80 centimeters by 80 centimeters. Son claimed he did not dig this hole himself. Investigating officers worked directly with the individuals responsible for relocating the graves at the Hamlet 6 Cemetery, and learned that the grave Sun claimed to have taken the skull from was the burial site of the paternal grandmother of Mr. Tran Vun Chan, also known as Ut Chan. On July 10, 2005, Mr. Ut Chan's family had hired a man named Tu to exhume this grave and move it to another location for burial. When questioned, the man named Tu testified he was the one who directly dug the head of the grave, then chiseled the wooden plank at the head of the coffin and used a rake to pull the bones out. He firmly asserted that he had retrieved all the bones, including the skull, and arranged them carefully under the supervision of the family before taking them away for reburial. The investigating officers proceeded to invite Mr. Ut Chan to the commune police station for clarification. Mr. Ut Chan confirmed that during his grandmother's exhumation, he and his two sons witnessed the process firsthand and saw that the bones gathered were completely intact. Mr. Ut Chan had even cautiously sent his grandson to the newly built grave to check for any signs of tampering, but it remained completely undisturbed. Under continuous interrogation, Son still stubbornly insisted, "I took the skull from the grave of Mr. Ut Chan's family." On the afternoon of July 15th, at the investigation agency, Huyn Thai Son went so far as to swear on his life. "If I am lying, just dig up Mr. Ut Chan's family grave and it will be clear. If that grave still has the skull, I will accept whatever prison sentence the officers give me." Son glibly explained, "We have exhumed many graves. When digging, the whole family crowds around to watch. But when we are about to open the coffin, everyone runs away. So how can they be sure if bones are missing or complete to guarantee it?" Son further asserted, "I have been in this profession for many years. I can guarantee that this skull belonged to a woman who died decades ago, and her brain has not yet decomposed." However, it was clearly impossible for a single grave to contain two skulls. Seeing that the case held many hidden complexities, Comrade Tran Juk Tai, then acting chief of District 1 Police, ordered the investigators to clarify the contradictions to reach a conclusion swiftly and return the skull to the deceased. On the afternoon of July 16, 2005, the investigation agency served emergency arrest warrants to Joan Ngoc Phong and Huyn Thai Son. Under further interrogation, the two confessed more. About a month prior, they had shipped a parcel to Duong Trung Duong in the U.S. containing cremated ashes that Son had picked up during a grave exhumation, which he then cremated and handed over to Phong to ship to Duong. Duong had also sent Phong $200 as payment. Synthesizing all evidence gathered during the verification process, the investigation agency concluded that Phong and Son's testimonies contained too many contradictions. However, to accurately verify their claims, they had to exhumate the grave of Mr. Ut Chan's grandmother. This posed a difficult situation as the grave had just been reburied 7 days prior, and Mr. Ut Chan's family was preparing to construct the tomb. After a careful consideration, the investigation agency decided that they had to convince Mr. Ut Chan's family to cooperate and allow the grave to be exhumed once more. Would Mr. Ut Chan agree to this? At 6 a.m. on July 17th, District 1 police investigators arrived at Mr. Ut Chan's house. At this time, Mr. Ut Chan's entire family was gathering at the cemetery to mix mortar for the tomb construction. After an hour of persuasion, Mr. Ut Chan cooperated with the investigation agency, agreeing to exhume the grave to check for the skull. The exhumation results revealed that the skull and all the bones of this grave were completely intact. Thus, Son's testimony was a blatant lie, and the identity of the human skull in the shipping box remained an unsolved mystery. During this period, numerous rumors swirled around the discovery of the skull bound for the U.S. Some suggested this was a homicide case where the perpetrator was still hiding in the shadows. Because the victim had been buried in the mud, fearing detection, the killer had hired Son and Phong after some time to dig up the skull and smuggle it away to destroy the evidence. Many others believed this could be a contract-killing style homicide, where the killer was shipping the evidence to the U.S. to claim their blood money. Another group speculated that the owner of the shipment thought it was the skull of an American soldier who died during the war, shipping it to the U.S. in hopes of securing a resettlement slot there. Yet another wave of public rumor claimed that this was a skeletal remains smuggling ring operating under orders from relatives overseas who wanted to bring their ancestors' remains abroad for worship. Additionally, someone provided information that Fang's older brother in the US worked as a spiritual medium/occult practitioner, which was why he requested Fang to send the skull to create a dark amulet. All of these leads were captured and carefully verified by the investigation agency. According to records kept at the Saigon Central Post Office and the Ho Chi Minh City Post Office Customs Department, before the package containing the skull was discovered, Fang had shipped packages to the man named Duong Trung Duong in the US numerous times. The specific shipments were as follows. On April 6, 2005, a parcel was sent by Joan Ngoc Fang to Duong Trung Duong via regular mail, tracking number BK457, weighing 2.48 kilograms, containing a statue of Ong Jia, the earth god, a bundle of roots, tubers, and leaves that Fang claimed were herbal medicine, along with several small wooden boxes. On April 11th, another parcel, tracking number R493, weighing 700 grams, consisting of 2 sets of clothes and a bottle of oil, was sent by Fang to the same recipient, Duong Trung Duong. On May 10th, for the third time, Joan Ngoc Fang sent parcel BK707 to Duong Trung Duong, weighing 4.84 kilograms, containing a bag of dried fish, a bag of turmeric, and 11 small porcelain statues. On June 18th, Fang sent 2 parcels at the same time, tracking number R22, weighing 2 kilograms, including half a kilogram of charcoal, the type ground up to make writing ink, along with 4 bags of turmeric, and parcel R122, weighing 1.262 kilograms, consisting of 11 wooden statues. On May 23rd, also at the Saigon Central Post Office, another parcel was sent by Fang to Duong Trung Duong. This time it contained 15 wooden Buddha statues and 4 wooden boxes. For this shipment, Joan Ngoc Fang switched to express mail. Inside the parcel numbered EE703274745VN, weighing 5.22 kilograms, were 6 clay Buddha statues and a bag of bones, which Fang claimed were cat bones used to make medicine to treat asthma. 10 days later, Joan Ngoc Fang sent 3 more packages, including 35 wooden boxes, 4 plaster statues, 6 small clay statues, 19 statues of Thien Tai, the god of wealth, and another bag of cat bones. On June 14th, Joan Ngoc Fang shipped his heaviest parcel yet to the US, weighing 18 kilograms, but it contained only 2 notebooks and 2 plaster Buddha statues, the exact same type of statue Fang used to conceal the human skull. The following day, on June 15th, Fang shipped another parcel weighing 9.930 kilograms, containing 1 plaster statue, 1 cassette tape, and a bag of turmeric. On June 28, 2005, Joan Ngoc Fang continued by sending a parcel weighing 10.05 kilograms, which included a plaster Buddha statue of the exact same dimensions as the one containing the skull, a deck of cards, and 10 bottles of Chinese ink. In the days that followed, Fang made several more shipments consisting of 3 bags of turmeric, 1 notebook, and 12 plastic Buddha statues. It was not until July 13th, while attempting to ship the package containing the human skull, that Fang was caught. In total, Fang had shipped 91 statues made of various materials such as wood, plastic, and plaster to Duong Trung Duong. Most notable among these were 8 plaster Buddha statues accompanied by bags of turmeric, all possessing the exact same dimensions as the statue used to hide the skull. The identity of the recipient of Fang's packages, a man named Duong Trung Duong living in the US, was soon uncovered. Duong Trung Duong, whose real name was actually Joan Ngoc Duong, was the biological older brother of Joan Ngoc Fang. He resided in the city of Westminster, Garden Grove, Southern California, an area with the highest concentration of Vietnamese residents in the United States. On the Garden Grove website back in 2005, Joan Ngoc Duong's name was listed as Duong Duan N, 39 years old, occupation, astrologer. For the sake of consistency in this video, we will refer to this individual by his real name, Joan Ngoc Duong. Juan Ngoc Duong was born in Long An, now part of Thai Ninh province, into a family that specialized in fortune-telling and consecrating amulets and dark charms. Duong moved abroad in 1975. Initially, Duong worked various odd jobs to make a living, including mowing lawns, shoveling snow, and working as a gas station attendant. In the early 1990s, Duong transitioned into practicing fortune-telling in the U.S., proclaiming himself a master sorcerer and setting up an office at the Mall of Fortune in the city of Westminster, California. However, despite practicing for quite some time, Duong's reputation remained largely obscure, even though he spent money to advertise in several newspapers published in the Little Saigon area. The year 2005 marked the absolute peak of a Vietnamese female medium named Smith Ha. She was the most sought-after fortune teller in Southern California and the pioneer of fortune telling on the VOV, Voice of Vietnam, radio station in Westminster, famous for her two-line poem, "The sky is covered with swirling clouds. The palm lines reveal the fate of the afflicted." Smith Ha boasted up to 250,000 clients among the Vietnamese diaspora across various states in the U.S. Numerous Vietnamese-language newspapers in the U.S. frequently wrote about Smith Ha, noting that her influence on the spiritual life of the Vietnamese community in America was profound. However, in mid-April 2005, Smith Ha and her daughter Anita Vo were murdered at their private residence, abruptly ending the life as well as the highly successful American dream of this female occultist in the land of opportunity. Following the death of Smith Ha, the fortune teller Juan Ngoc Duong began to rise to prominence. According to some Vietnamese residents in Garden Grove, Master Sorcerer Duong specialized in fortune-telling and consecrating charms for clients upon request, charging anywhere from $500 to $20,000 depending on whether the client wanted a booming business, a smooth love life, or family harmony. These charms consisted of Buddha statues, tree roots, turmeric, and cremated ashes, which the Master Sorcerer marketed as sacred Ngai herbs and human bones. More notably, for anyone seeking to look into their future before making a major life decision, the Master Sorcerer was ready to consecrate charms for them to take home and worship at a price ranging from $30,000 to $50,000. In particular, Juan Ngoc Duong revealed to many people that while Smith Ha foretold fortunes using Ngai herbs, he predicted the future and destiny using an elite premier type of black magic known as Thien Linh Cai, charging $1,500 per reading. In the US, unless one works in the fields of archaeology or anthropology, keeping a human skull inside a home without a legal permit will instantly draw the attention of the American police. Thien Linh Cai originally originated in ancient China, later following occult masters into Vietnam between the late 19th and early 20th centuries, specifically in the Bay Nui region of An Giang. According to legend, Thien Linh Cai is refined from the skull of a virgin girl. The skull is covered in red cloth and kept in a high, secluded corner of the house where light cannot penetrate, and women are strictly forbidden from approaching it. Every day at exactly 12 p.m. and 12 a.m., the practitioner chants incantations and feeds the Thien Linh Cai chicken blood by placing a bowl of fresh blood directly in front of the skull. After 100 days, once the Thien Linh Cai is fully formed, a bowl of chicken blood that was full when placed down would be completely drained when removed. Legend also has it that the owner of a Thien Linh Cai will know the exact future and destiny. To ask for anything, one merely needs to pray and make a request. If the Thien Linh Cai shifts slightly forward, the request is granted. If it moves backward, it is denied. In reality, this is nothing more than a fraudulent, absurd, and superstitious scam, yet it still manages to deceive superstitious, gullible, and blindly ignorant individuals. Consequently, hearing that Master Duong possessed a Thien Linh Cai, many people called him, though none of his clients had ever actually witnessed what the Thien Linh Cai looked like. Even though some were willing to drop $1,500 to have the master perform a reading, Duong tactfully declined all of these phone calls, claiming that the higher powers have not yet granted permission. While the news of the human skull found in the US-bound package was sending shockwaves through public opinion, on the morning of July 24, 2005, Several reporters from various newspapers in Vietnam attempted to contact Master Sorcerer Duong at his residential landline, but no one answered. When they switched to calling his mobile phone, after about 5 rings, the phone was turned off, perhaps because he recognized the Vietnam country code on the screen, or for some other unknown reason. By evening, a correspondent for the An Ninh the Gioi World Security newspaper, a famous publication in Vietnam who was living in Garden Grove, managed to get through to the Master Sorcerer on the phone. Engaging in conversation when the correspondent posed as a client wishing to acquire a Thien Linh Cái amulet to worship, under the pretext of helping her biological older brother leave his mistress and return to his legal wife, the master claimed that he had previously refined 5 Thien Linh Cái pieces, but they had all been taken by other clients. If she wanted one now, she would have to wait for some time. The Master Sorcerer quoted a price of $50,000 because refining a Thien Linh Cái requires the skull of a virgin girl, and the process of casting spells and chanting incantations is extremely costly. Sensing that the client seemed hesitant about the price, the Master Sorcerer suggested she acquire a Pháp Chi, Sacred Decree amulet instead, priced at $30,000. When asked what a Pháp Chi was, the Master Sorcerer explained that it was an intact human hand bone with all 5 fingers, which had been infused with magic. When organizing a wedding, embarking on a long journey, or making major decisions, one only needs to write on 2 small pieces of paper the words yes and no, and then chant the incantation. Whichever piece of paper the Pháp Chi points its finger to is the one to open and follow. Using the excuse that she could not understand well over the phone, the caller requested an in-person appointment, to which the Master Sorcerer readily agreed, even providing very detailed driving directions. As scheduled, the newspaper correspondent, undercover as a client, went to meet Master Sorcerer Duong Trung Duong at Westminster Avenue, Garden Grove. Inside a rather cramped room, the Master Sorcerer, a slender man with graying hair, heavily tattooed arms, wearing shorts and a red and blue checkered shirt, sat cross-legged next to a wooden table. Throughout the entire conversation, he continuously advertised his professions as a charm master, feng shui master, and fortune teller. He claimed, "Just the other day, someone over here tried to sponsor their relatives in Vietnam for years without success. When they came to see me, I gave them a talisman. The next day, their relative went for the interview and the U.S. consulate nodded in approval instantly." Afterward, the Master Sorcerer urged the client to acquire the handbone amulet and the sacred incantations to ensure that whatever she wished for would be granted. He added that if she did not have enough money up front but still wanted her older brother to quickly return to his wife, she just needed to provide his name, date of birth, a portrait photo, and $20,000. The Master Sorcerer would then use a statue and pierce needles into its abdomen daily while chanting incantations. He guaranteed that her brother would suffer agonizing abdominal pain whenever he slept with his mistress, and the pain would only stop when he returned to his legal wife. After listening to the Master Sorcerer speak for a while, the correspondent casually posed a question, mentioning that the newspapers were reporting on a shipping box containing a human skull sent by Duong Ngoc Phang from Vietnam, asking if it was meant for the master to refine a Thiên Linh Cái. At this point, the Master Sorcerer looked at the interviewer with suspicion and replied that Phang was merely a cousin and that he had only requested a plaster Maitreya Buddha statue. He claimed that perhaps due to a misunderstanding, Duong Ngoc Phang had placed a human skull inside it. At the same time, the Master Sorcerer firmly asserted that up until now, Duong Ngoc Phang had only sent him a package once, the recent one that was seized by the Vietnam Post Office. However, immediately after, Master Sorcerer Duong added, "Those bags of tubers that Phang sent me are Ngai roots. I use them to brew medicine. As for keeping 5 or 10 skulls in the house or shipping them through the mail, that is a completely normal thing here in the US. It's just that the Vietnamese government wants to blow the matter out of proportion. If I need a human skull, I can just order one from Tibet. A complete set costs only a few $1,000s. The correspondent then asked, "Then why did you tell me over the phone yesterday that you possessed 5 Thien Linh Cái pieces and that 5 people had already taken them all. The master sorcerer replied, "Well, now that this whole mess has blown up like this," and then he fell silent. If the master sorcerer's words held any truth, could it be that 5 human skulls had already been successfully shipped to Duong Trong Duong, and it was only the 6th skull that was intercepted by the Ho Chi Minh City Post Office Customs Department? A few days after the plot to export a human skull to the United States was uncovered, Vietnamese-language newspapers in Little Saigon, California, flooded the press with the news, causing a massive stir within the Vietnamese community across the United States. Returning to the developments of the case in Vietnam, 1 month after discovering the human skull hidden inside the U.S.-bound package, both defendants, Huỳnh Thái Son and Doan Ngoc Phang, still showed a lack of cooperation, giving evasive and circular testimonies. Right at this moment, a man unexpectedly came forward to the investigation agency to report an incident. That man was Tran Van Rang, also known as Ut Rang, residing in Ben Luc District, Long An Province, now part of Tay Ninh Province. A few days prior, his 7th child had brought home a newspaper for him to read. As an uneducated farmer who rarely interacted with the press or literature, holding the newspaper in his hands and reading about the human skull sent to the U.S. caused Mr. Rang's entire body to tremble. Both he and his son shared an intuition that the incident was connected to their family, and they reported their inner suspicions to the local authorities. As it turned out, Mr. Rang had a 3rd daughter named Tran Thi Ban. In 1975, Tran Thi Ban contracted typhoid fever. Due to severe family economic difficulties and transportation blockades during the fierce war. By the time Mr. Ut Rang's family managed to transfer their daughter to Cho Quan Hospital, she could no longer be saved. Miss Ban passed away in late April 1975, just before turning 18. Mr. Ut Rang brought his daughter back to be buried at the Ba Ok Cemetery in their hometown of Tan Duc Commune. When the Cho Gem Trung Luong Expressway project was implemented, hundreds of graves at the Ba Ok Cemetery had to be relocated. Mr. Ut Rang's lineage had 2 graves within this scope, the grave of his paternal grandmother and that of his deceased daughter. Mr. Ut Rang hired a professional grave exhumer named Tuong at a price of 500,000 Vietnamese dong per grave. That was the agreement, but since he had not yet received the relocation subsidy, he did not want to proceed immediately. Strangely, seeing Mr. Rang's family hesitating, Tuong repeatedly urged them. Realizing that the task had to be done sooner or later, he agreed to let Tuong proceed right away. The exhumation took place on July 10, 2005. Participating in the exhumation alongside Tuong was an individual brought along by Tuong named Vu. During the exhumation, the family was allowed to stand and watch the placement of the grandmother's remains into the ossuary, small coffin, but Tuong did not allow the family to come near the remains of the daughter due to spiritual reasons. Mr. Rang recalled that when they were preparing to gather his daughter's bones, the man named Vu told Mr. Rang's family, "This person was still a virgin when she died, so she is extremely sacred. Therefore, her remains clash spiritually with everyone in the family, and no one is allowed to see the bones. The family should go home now. When it is time to lower her into the new grave, we will invite the family to witness it." Believing these words, Mr. Rang's family all went home. Only after Tuong had arranged the bones and closed the coffin lid did he call the family back to carry it for reburial. From that anomaly, combined with the fact that his family's exhumation took place on July 10, 2005, and just a few days later on July 13th, the package containing the human skull was discovered, Mr. Rang's suspicions were deeply reinforced. Upon receiving this information, the District 1 police dispatched officers to Ben Luc, Long An to meet with Mr. Rang. In an unexpected twist, the relocated grave of Miss Ban, Mr. Rang's daughter, lay right next to the grave of Mr. Yu Chan's grandparents, whereas Huỳnh Thái Son had claimed that the skull sent to the U.S. was taken from the grave of Mr. Yu Chan's grandmother. With the consent of Mr. Rang's family, on the morning of August 26, 2005, the exhumation of Miss Ban's grave was carried out. Under the witness of Mr. Rang's family, local authorities, and functional agencies, When the ceramic ossuary was opened, the human skull was missing. Thus, it became evident that the human skull sent by Joan Ngoc Phong to Duong Trung Duong in the U.S. was the skull of Miss Tran Thi Ban, which had been stolen by Huang Thai Son in collusion with the grave exhumer. The investigation agency took statements from the grave exhumer named Tuong and extracted bone samples from the young girl's grave for forensic examination to see if the DNA matched the skull. Knowing they could no longer conceal the truth, the perpetrators had to fully confess to their actions. According to Fong's confession, it stemmed from the request of his older brother, Joan Ngoc Duong, alias Duong Trung Duong, who was settling in the U.S. and wanted a human skull sent over from Vietnam. However, it had to be the skull of a virgin girl so that Duong could refine a Thien Linh Cai, casting dark spells to serve Duong's occult practice as a sorcerer in America. Phong did not know how to execute this, so he had to trudge all the way to Thien Linh to seek help. After contacting a ritual priest, Phong was introduced to Huang Thai Son in Ben Luc, Long An. Knowing that Son was an insider in the profession who specialized in collecting corpses and exhuming and relocating graves, and could fulfill his cousin's difficult request, Phong met with Son and raised the issue. After listening, Son agreed to help, naturally in exchange for a substantial amount of money. Per the agreement, Son would locate a human skull exactly as Phong requested, then clean and conceal it inside a plaster Buddha statue to deliver to Phong for a price of 1.7 million Vietnamese dong. Once the contract was finalized, Son went searching for the merchandise to hand over. Knowing that Joan Van Tu, also known as Tuong, a fellow professional in the trade, was contracted to exhume 2 graves for Mr. Tran Van Rang's family, one of which belonged to a young girl, Son found a way to approach Tu and requested Tu to supply him with the skull of a virgin girl. At first, Tu did not dare to carry out this request, but under pressure from Son, Tu reluctantly agreed. Tu also agreed to allow Son's nephew, Zhang Van Lan, alias Vu, to participate in exhuming these 2 graves alongside him to facilitate the execution of their conspiracy. Before Tu and Lan carried out the work, Son also placed an order with Tu for the virgin girl's set of molar teeth to bring home to make medicine to treat rhinitis. When the designated date for the exhumation arrived, Tu notified Son to coordinate their actions. As scheduled on the morning of July 10, 2005, Son brought Lan to the cemetery to exhume the graves alongside Tu. When exhuming the grave of Mr. Rang's daughter, Tu fabricated a reason to prevent Mr. Rang's family from coming near the excavation site. The family placed their trust in the 2 grave exhumers and stayed away, allowing them to leisurely execute their plot to steal the remains. While Tu removed the set of molars, Lan took the skull and hid it down in the mud. The remaining skeletal parts were arranged into the ossuary before they called the family back for the handover. Regarding Miss Ban's skull, Tu and Lan brought it to a waterhole to wash it clean. Afterward, Lan brought it back to hand over to Son and was given 50,000 Vietnamese dong by Son. Son purchased a hollow plaster Buddha statue along with some plaster powder, brought them home, placed the skull inside the statue, mixed the plaster, and sealed it completely. 2 days later, Son delivered the Buddha statue containing the human skull to Phong and received the remaining balance of 1.2 million Vietnamese dong. Son gave 100,000 Vietnamese dong back to Phong. When Phong brought it to the post office to ship, it was discovered. After the plot was uncovered, Tuong and his wife came to apologize, claiming they had carelessly allowed the disciple of Son Bit Moi to take away Miss Ba's skull. However, the law-violating conduct of these individuals could not simply be dismissed with an empty apology. On March 28, 2006, the People's Court of Ben Luc District, Long An Province, brought the case of shipping a human skull to the U.S. conducted by Joan Ngoc Phong, residing in Vinh Hung Town, Vinh Hung District, Long An, to trial. Appearing in court alongside Phong, 3 other defendants specializing in grave exhumation, skeletal remains retrieval, and coffin relocation were Huang Thai Son, Zhang Van Lan, alias Vu, and Joan Van Tu, alias Tuong, all residing in Ben Luc District, who were jointly prosecuted under the charge of violating corpses, graves, and skeletal remains. Before the court, Johan van Tu testified that he had absolutely no knowledge that Sun was taking the human skull to sell, but only knew that Sun requested it to save a human life. At first, Tu refused to do it, but Sun threatened him. "If you betray me, you die." Terrified, the defendant agreed to let Sun's nephew-in-law take Miss Ban's skull. Meanwhile, Lon stated that he was merely a hired laborer for his uncle-in-law's son and had no idea what Sun was taking the skull for. Sun only paid Lon 50,000 Vietnamese dong, which was equivalent to a standard day's wage. When interrogated by the court as to why he stole a human skull to sell, Sun claimed that because Phong begged him, saying he needed a human skull to worship at home, he had no idea that Phong was taking the human skull abroad. The court questioned, "If you didn't know Phong was selling it abroad, why did you charge a price of 1.7 million Vietnamese dong?" Sun explained that it was not money from selling a human skull. Out of that 1.7 million Vietnamese dong, 1 million Vietnamese dong was the standard grave exhumation fee, and the remaining 700,000 Vietnamese dong was the cost to purchase the Buddha statue and transport it back to Phong. Also during the interrogation phase at the court, Joan Ngoc Phong expressed deep remorse and stated that due to his low education and lack of understanding, having worked only as a hired laborer since childhood and knowing nothing, when he heard his brother say he needed a skull to worship, he simply bought it and shipped it to the US for his brother. Phong begged the court to consider a lenient sentence so he could correct his mistakes, while promising to provide proper compensation and apologize to Mr. Rang's family. Considering that the defendants all possessed low educational backgrounds, belonged to the working-class demographic that lacked legal knowledge, acted on impulse, and the nature of the crime was not classified as severe, the court did not apply punishments that isolated the defendants from society. Based on these assessments, the court sentenced Huyen Thai Son, Joan Ngoc Phong, Giang Van Lan, and Joan Van Tu to sentences ranging from 12 to 24 months in prison, but granted them suspended sentences, probation. Regarding civil liability, the court ordered the defendants to compensate Mr. Rang's family 10 million Vietnamese dong for emotional distress and 2 million Vietnamese dong for travel, exhumation, and grave relocation expenses. The case regarding the human skull inside the US-bound package in Vietnam was thus brought to light. Those who participated in this case in Vietnam have been brought to justice. As for Joan Ngoc Duong, or Duong Trung Duong, the individual to whom Joan Ngoc Phong sent the skull, we have not captured any further information regarding this character since the trial. It remains unknown whether, after the incident sent shockwaves through both Vietnam and the Vietnamese diaspora in America, his talismans and especially his Thien Linh Cai charms are still sought after by gullible individuals to acquire, regardless of the exorbitant price tag. This video by Tropical Crimry Files concludes here. Thank you, valued audience, for your interest and viewership. Goodbye and see you in the next videos.